Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, audible.
Rajin sir ano?
Sir, audible.
Audible, but video is not there now. When I pressed into that, some numbers, they show certain numbers, select a number to dial, and they're showing numbers.
Hello.
Hello? Now it's okay.
It's okay now.
Yeah. Any formalities there to start?
There's an introduction. After that, you can start.
Yeah.
English ഒക്കെയാണോ? സാർമാരോ? ഒന്നും മൈൻഡ് ചെയ്യടാ. മുത്തമിട്ട് തുടങ്ങിയ സൂപ്പറാ സീരിയല്. എനിക്കൊന്നും ഇഷ്ടമല്ല. എനിക്ക് പൗർണമി തിങ്കൾ ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് രാത്രി ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് നല്ല റൊമാൻസ്. എനിക്കിഷ്ടം സത്യം അറിയാവോ? സത്യ
Hello?
Hello.
അല്ല 7 മണി കഴിഞ്ഞു, അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഞാൻ വിളിച്ചത്.
We can start soon. Some more people, we are waiting for some more people.
Okay. It's okay.
Within 2 minutes we can start.
Yeah.
Sir, you know Dr. Madhusudanan Vaila?
I know.
Actually, I got your number from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we are working as part of Shastra Sahitya Parishad. Isn't
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
sir?
Yes.
Okay. Sir, today morning, who is the program? I noticed a program conducted by you based on Kerala University. And actually, what is the program, sir?
Same thing.
Oh, same topic.
Yeah.
It's conducted by Kerala University, isn't it?
No, Adur Training College.
Oh, okay.
B.Ed College.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
മനസ്സ് നന്നാവട്ടെ. Good evening all. NSS cell of UKF College of Engineering and Technology is organizing a webinar Nalaikai on the topic Environmental Conservation, a Global Perspective. The session will be held by Dr. F. George de Cruz, Director, Environment Study and Research Center, KSSP. He is also the former HOD and Director of Research Center, Zoology, FMNC, Kollam. In order to welcome you all, I invite Brincy.
മനസ്സ് നന്നാവട്ടെ. Good evening one and all who are present here to make this event a great. It's my proud and privilege to welcome you all to this webinar on the topic Environmental Conservation, a Global Perspective, hosted by the NSS Unit 250 and 540 of UKF College of Engineering and Technology, Paripalli, Kollam. It's my pleasure to welcome the speaker to this webinar, Dr. F. George de Cruz, Director, Environment Study and Research Center, KSSP. He was also former HOD and Director of Research Center, Zoology, FMNC, Kollam. Next, I would like to welcome the backbone of our events, our coordinator, Professor Regin T.S. and Professor Akhil J. Babu, who were there for giving maximum support to make the event a success. I welcome you both. Next, I would like to invite each and every participant to this webinar. I hope that you will be able to squeeze all the complete richness from that webinar. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brincy. Well, this is the time to begin our session. So please.
I can start now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good evening to everybody. So today, July 28th, is World Nature Conservation Day. And we know that there are so many other days in connection with the environment and the protection of natural resources. Just like, you may be knowing June 5th. We had already celebrated June 5th Environment Day on Environment Day. Then there is Earth Day, Ozone Day, Water Day. So many days are there. And as far as this World Nature Conservation Day is concerned, usually the theme is being proposed by Europark Conference. And Europark Conference is nothing but a conglomeration of a group of activists and environmentalists, and government officials from Europe, especially working in Europe's protected areas, and also 2,000 other nature sites around the world. And last time they met at Latvia, in Kameri Park, Latvia, and they had suggested a theme for the year that was nature on your mind, understanding our values. That was the theme. But this time Europark conference hadn't held yet because of COVID, and they are planning to conduct it on 8th and 9th September. And they'll be, the conference will be exploring what skills and capacities protected areas need to implement the 2030 biodiversity strategy in the post-COVID-19 world. That was the theme there. And this time they are going to propose it on 8th and 9th, and that will be an online conference, of course. And we cannot say where they are. They are and then they are going to from different parts of the world. They will be, the participants will contribute for that session. And anyway, this year Environment Day theme was also biodiversity, and nature conservation always stresses on that, because it is with regard to the conservation of the nature and the natural resources. And the UN accepts the fact that healthy environment is the foundation for a stable and productive society. And for this only they ask people around the world to celebrate such and such days to create awareness. And in this particular day, the main aim is to increase awareness about the best practices to protect our natural resources. Natural resources, I think if it is okay with English, or sometimes I can also shift to Malayalam, and also we can have a sort of what is called Maniprabala. And I think that will be better. Otherwise, I think some participants may get bored. So the resources, we got only 5 types of resources on this planet, and those 5 types of resources are nothing but water, air, soil, plants, and animals. And these are the resources on which we depend for our sustenance. And therefore, when we talk about this, actually we take the whole biosphere as a single ecosystem. ബയോളജി പഠിക്കുന്നവർക്കൊക്കെ അറിയാം ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം. അവർ പലതരത്തിലുള്ള ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റങ്ങളെ കുറിച്ച് പറയും. ഫോറസ്റ്റ് ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം, മറ്റുള്ള ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം, വെറ്റ്ലാൻഡ് ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം, ഒരുപാട് തരത്തിലുള്ള ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റംസ് ഉണ്ട്. ബട്ട് ദ ഹോൾ ഗ്ലോബ്, എസ്പെഷ്യലി ദ ബയോസ്ഫിയർ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ജീവന് നിലനിൽക്കാൻ പറ്റിയ ഇടം ഭൂഗോളത്തിൽ, അതിനെ മൊത്തത്തിൽ ഒരു ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം ആയിട്ട് കണക്കാക്കാം. അപ്പോൾ the concept of ecosystem is that there is a constant flow of energy into this ecosystem from the sun, and there is an interaction of living and non-living things there, and through this interaction there is an equilibrium. That equilibrium is getting, that equilibrium is there which prolongs this life on this biosphere. And therefore, today, as the Nature Conservation Day, and as the theme asks us to consider nature on your mind, we have to view this whole biosphere as a single ecosystem, and we are concerned with the protection of this whole biosphere or the global ecosystem as a whole. And this being the thing, and I think today, that is now there is a very peculiar condition or very peculiar circumstances there before us, that is nothing but the COVID-19 circumstance. And therefore, I think we will discuss in the first part of this talk will be on COVID-19 and the environment. And when I talk about that, after that, of course, we will be going to the conservation of the natural resources of our ecosystem. And when we talk about this COVID-19 and environment, that's a very good lesson. That is, in the ecosystem, as I told earlier, there is a natural system to control everything in the ecosystem. Suppose you take the case of a forest. There are carnivores, herbivores, animals like that. Then plants. The carnivores depend on the herbivorous animals, and the herbivorous animals depend on the plants, particular types of plants, the food plants, of course. And there should be a balance, a particular ratio between the first top level carnivores, the second layer of carnivores, then the herbivores, and the plants, and the space as a whole. So that means there is an equilibrium, there is a stabilized condition, and the number of the carnivores shouldn't exceed a particular limit. The number of herbivores also shouldn't exceed a particular limit. And the plant species also, there should be enough food for these animals. And this is true for the whole global ecosystem also. അപ്പം നമ്മുടെ ഭൂമി മൊത്തത്തിലൊരു ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റം ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴും നമ്മൾ കാണേണ്ട കാര്യം അതാണ്. എത്ര ലക്ഷക്കണക്കിന് സ്പീഷീസുകൾ 17.5 ലക്ഷം സ്പീഷീസുകളാണ് ഇന്ന് ഭൂമുഖത്ത് നമ്മൾ ഐഡന്റിഫൈ ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത്. But it is estimated that there are around 200 lakhs of species of animals. അപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഇനി കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാനുള്ളത് കൂടുതലും മൈക്രോബിയൽ വേൾഡിലുള്ള മൈക്രോ ഓർഗാനിസം അറിയാത്തത്. അപ്പൊ എന്തുവാട്ടെ, അപ്പൊ ഇത്രയും സ്പീഷീസുകൾ, അപ്പോൾ ഇത്രയും സ്പീഷീസുകൾ ഇപ്പൊ നമുക്കറിയാവുന്ന 17.5 ലക്ഷം സ്പീഷീസുകൾ, 17.5 ലക്ഷം സ്പീഷീസുകളിൽ പെട്ട ഓർഗാനിസംസ് ഇങ്ങനെ ഈ ഗ്ലോബൽ ഇക്കോസിസ്റ്റത്തില് ജീവിക്കുമ്പോൾ അവര് തമ്മിൽ ഇതുപോലൊരു റേഷ്യോ വേണമല്ലോ. സോ ഇതിന്റെ സ്റ്റെബിലിറ്റി നിലനിർത്തണമെങ്കിൽ ദർ ഷുഡ് ബി എ ബാലൻസ്. അപ്പം ആ ബാലൻസ് സ്റ്റെബിലൈസ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള നേച്ചറിന്റെ ഒരു പ്രവർത്തനമാണ് നമ്മളിപ്പോ COVID-19. അതിന് നമ്മളൊരു ഇത്തിരി ഇതിന്റെ ഒരു ചരിത്രം ഒന്ന് പഠിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, that is how this global ecosystem had been stabilized in the past before the evolution of human beings. അത് നമ്മൾ കാണണം. നമുക്കറിയാം നമ്മുടെ ഭൂമിയുടെ പ്രായം എത്രയാ? ഭൂമിയുടെ പ്രായം ഏകദേശം എത്രയാ, ഒരു 455 കോടിയൊക്കെ വരും. അത്രയും കോടി വർഷങ്ങളാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇത്രയും കോടി വർഷങ്ങൾക്ക് മുമ്പ് ഭൂമി ഉണ്ടായെങ്കിലും ജീവൻ വന്നത് ഒരു 370 crores of years മുമ്പാണ്. 370 crores of years മുമ്പ് ചെയ്ത ലൈഫ് തന്നെ ഒരു 60 crores of years before വരെ it was very, in the microbial level. That is, the life was there only in water, in the oceans and other fresh waters, and very low types of organisms on the ground, because the conditions were not congenial for the existence and sustenance of higher forms of life at that time. And therefore, regarding the slides and all, I will tell you when to show. Now let it be, I'm just talking about this COVID-19, and I'm just telling you about the previous stories. That's all. And what happened was, ഇത്രയും സ്പീഷീസുകള് വെറും 60 കോടി വർഷങ്ങൾക്ക് മുമ്പാണ് ഹയർ ലെവലിലുള്ള ഹയർ ലെവലിലുള്ള പറയാവുന്ന തരത്തിലുള്ള ജീവികളൊക്കെ ഫോം ചെയ്തു തുടങ്ങി. അപ്പൊ ഈ ഓഷൻസിൽ തന്നെ ആദ്യകാലത്ത് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരു എത്ര വർഷം 340 നിന്ന് 60 വർഷാൽ എത്ര വരും അത്രയും, ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് 280 crores of years ലൈഫ് വാസ് ദർ only in the oceans. അപ്പൊ ഈ ഓഷ്യാനിക് ലൈഫിലും മൈക്രോബ്സ് പല തരത്തിലുള്ളതാണ്. മൈക്രോബ്സ് ഒരുപാട് വരുമ്പോൾ അതിന്റെ നമ്പർ കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യും. അതിന്റെ നമ്പർ കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഏജൻസ് ആയിരുന്നു വൈറസുകൾ. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് വൈറസ് നമുക്കറിയാം, ഈ ബാക്ടീരിയകളെ കൊല്ലുന്ന, അറ്റാക്ക് ചെയ്ത് കൊല്ലുന്ന വൈറസുകളാണ് വി കോൾ ദം ആസ് ബാക്ടീരിയോഫേജസ്. And this bacteriophage virus will attack the bacteria, kill them, and all these dead cells will disintegrate and enrich the oceans with nutrients. And as the nutrients are increased, then other forms of microbial world engulfs the oceans. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെയാണ് ലൈഫിന്റെ എവല്യൂഷൻ വരുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ ഈ നേച്ചർ ആസ് എ ഹോൾ വൈറസുകളെ ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ടാണ് ഓരോ സ്പീഷീസുകളുടെയും നമ്പർ റെഗുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് നിർത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഹ്യൂമൻ സ്പീഷീസിന്റെയും നമ്മള് ഹ്യൂമൻ ബീങ്സ് ആയതിനു ശേഷമാണ്, ഹോമോസാപ്പിയൻസിന്റെ എവല്യൂഷന് ശേഷമാണ് നമ്മൾ ഡോമിനന്റ് സ്പീഷീസ് ആയത്. അതുവരെ വേറെ വേറെ ഡോമിനന്റ് സ്പീഷീസ് നമുക്കറിയാം. അപ്പൊ ഈ ഡോമിനന്റ് സ്പീഷീസ് വന്നതിന് ശേഷം ഈ ഡോമിനന്റ് സ്പീഷീസിന്റെ നമ്പർ റെഗുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഒരുപാട് മെക്കാനിസംസ് ഭൂമിയിൽ നടന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അത് നമുക്കറിയാം. ഇപ്പൊ ഒരു ഇതുപോലൊരു മഹാമാരി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, പിന്നെ യൂറോപ്യൻ പ്ലേഗ്, പിന്നെ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ കാലാസാറ്, ഇതൊക്കെ ദീസ് were all operations by nature to control the dominant species, which was detrimental to other species in the ecosystem as a whole. Whole global ecosystem ന്റെ കാര്യം പറയുമ്പോൾ one species, if one species becomes the enemy to other species, the number of that species has to be controlled. That is the natural law. That is the natural selection and operation of natural selection through which evolution progresses. അപ്പോ ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ അപ്പോ ഈ വൈറസുകൾ മാത്രമല്ല, നമുക്കറിയാം വേറെ പിന്നെ മൈന്യൂട്ട് പാത്തോജൻസ് വേറെയും ഉണ്ട്. എങ്കിലും ഇങ്ങനെ മാസ് ഡിസ്ട്രക്ഷൻ നടക്കുന്നത്, സ്പീഷീസുകളുടെ മാസ് ഡിസ്ട്രക്ഷൻ നടക്കുന്നത് വൈറസുകളിലൂടെയാണ്. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള വൈറൽ അറ്റാക്കിലൂടെ ഒരു മാസ് ഡിസ്ട്രക്ഷന് പ്രകൃതിയുടേതായ ഒരു മെക്കാനിസമാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ ഓപ്പറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് നമ്മൾ അറിയുക. അപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഇതിൽ നിന്നൊരു പാഠം ഉൾക്കൊള്ളാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് ഞാൻ ഇത് ആദ്യമേ പറഞ്ഞത്. കാരണം ഈ നേച്ചറിനെ നമ്മൾ ഉപദ്രവിക്കുന്നത് കൊണ്ടാണ്, അതായത് നമുക്ക് ബുദ്ധിയുണ്ട്, നമുക്ക് അറിവുണ്ട്, ഈ ബുദ്ധി ഉപയോഗിച്ച് എല്ലാ സ്പീഷീസുകളെയും ഒന്നിച്ചു കൊണ്ടുപോകാൻ നമുക്ക് കഴിയാത്തത് കൊണ്ടാണ് ഇത് സംഭവിച്ചത്. അതേസമയം നമ്മൾ എത്രത്തോളം നേച്ചറിനെ കൺസേർവ് ചെയ്യണം എന്നുള്ള ഒരു മെസ്സേജ് ആണ് ഇതിൽ പങ്കുകിട്ടുന്നത്. സോ ദ ടോപ്പിക് ഇസ് വെരി റെലവെന്റ് നൗ. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് nature as a whole with all its resources are meant not only for human beings or Homo sapiens. As there are at present 17.5 lakhs of species, and global ecosystem is meant for all these, not only for us. So അത് ആ ഒരു മെസ്സേജ് ആണ് നമ്മൾ ഇതിലൂടെ ഉൾക്കൊള്ളേണ്ടത്. അപ്പൊ ഈ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ശാസ്ത്രലോകത്തിന് അറിയാം, സയന്റിഫിക് ബട്ട് ഭരണകൂടങ്ങൾ, മറ്റുള്ള പൊളിറ്റിക്കൽ സിസ്റ്റം and other controlling factors.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, sorry for the interruption. Sir, we have speakers from out of state. So can you please say in English only?
Oh, okay. It's okay.
Thank you, sir.
So there is so that inbuilt mechanism is getting operated. That's the sum and substance of this. So the COVID-19 pandemic is a process which should open our eyes towards the issues which we are going to discuss today. That is the natural resources, and the natural resources have to be protected. And now we can go to the topic. This is just an introduction, just to make you aware of the significance of the present situation. That's all. Now the slide number 3. Please, slide number 3. That is planet Earth. Stage for man's. We know that we got only one Earth, and as far as we know, only in this Earth there is life in the solar system. Others, we don't know. Though we know we don't know the life outside our solar system. And planet Earth is the stage for man's evolution, growth, and propagation. And it provides the space for our existence, and it's a source for everything, for sustenance, for the continuation of the life on this planet. Everything is being provided by that Earth itself, especially in the form of the 5 resources which I had mentioned earlier: air, water, soil, plants, animals. All these metals and all other minerals are coming from the soil that we know, the Earth's crust. And however, today we act like aliens bent upon destroying the Earth. That is what is actually we see. That is actually being done because of our greed. All those things we will come later. And the next slide number 4. How old are we? There we are discussing only about that is the age of the, suppose regarding the age of life, we had discussed that. To put in another way, suppose the age of Earth is 24 hours. We are here after 23 hours and 56 minutes. That means we are the latecomers. We came only very late, just 2 lakhs years before. And because of the speciality, whatever it may be, there are so many specialities. Anyway, we became the dominant species. Homo sapiens became the dominant species. And the human population, because of this dominant nature, the human population reached 3,000 crores in 1960. And we know that now it's more than 700 crores. And next slide, 5. Now we are more than 700 crores. Slide number 5. How many Earths? If all the 700 crore people were to live as the affluent minority does, that is, all of us are aspiring for such an extravagant way of life, which is being led by the most affluent people in the society. That's not only in America, it is the same in India, in China, in almost all the countries. And if all of us try, all the common people try to live like this affluent community, then we may need 3 years, but we have only 1. So there lies the importance of resources. Resources are limited, not unlimited, because we got only one Earth, and in this Earth there is only a fixed quantities of resources which should be utilized by not only human beings, others are also have to utilize them, because if they are not allowed, the system will collapse. And the nature has its duty to protect the system from collapsing, and that's why this type of pandemics are coming, that we are already mentioned. And now slide number 6. So to be precise, now, that is, when we talk about the present condition, we have reached a tipping point. The tipping point. Next slide, please. where the quality of air and water needs to be improved. No doubt, everybody will agree to that. The level of production needs to be balanced. All may not agree with this because the production is unlimited now and it is aimed at the extravagant, to aid the extravagant way of life of a minority and affluent people. The level of production needs to be balanced. That is, the second point is the most crucial. And amount of waste generated needs to be reduced. So these are the three things which we have to achieve. And when we talk about this, we have to go back to the earlier attempts made by our ancestors and also present day generation. So the next slide. So all of you might have heard of Rachel Carson and the famous book, The Silent Spring. And in that book, Silent Spring, Rachel Carson wrote in detail, and that also in a very touching manner, how the capitalist way of development is destroying the earth and also misusing the resources of the planet, and how it pollutes the environment, including the water, air, and soil. And so this book was bestseller in those times. The book was published in 1962, and most people in most of the countries read this book, and this created an awareness regarding the highlighting the significance of environmental conservation. And immediately after the publication of this book and its popularity, the experts from the Club of Rome, and they conducted worldwide studies and they analyzed the data available at that time, and they released two reports. And the first report is limits to growth. And in the limits to growth, experts are saying that, or they categorically says that for this type of development, there is a limit. We cannot, all the people on this planet cannot develop like the then affluent societies of USA and Britain. Because at that time in the 60s and all, it was to make capitalist countries which were developing very fast, utilizing all the resources on this planet. And therefore, what the experts of Club of Rome told in the limits of growth is that all the people from all the continents cannot grow like that. So there is a limit for growth. And if the limit is there, we have to find other options now, because all the people have to develop. All the people have the right to live live on this planet, and the resources are also there to be shared with them, but it is not being allowed. That's the thing. And therefore, what should be done? The second report is the alternative. The second report is named Mankind on the Crossroads. And in this report, Mankind on the Crossroads, they suggest another way. That is, now the human progress is in a crossroad. We cannot go further forward. We have to move, change the direction. And they proposed the sustainable development concept. That is, conserving the resources, judiciously utilizing the resources, development is possible. That's what they said. And the concept came at that time. Just to see that it was in 1965, these two reports. And as a result of all these, Rachel Carson's book and the Stockholm conference took place. That is, the UN General Assembly felt the need to protect this environment and also conserve the resources of the globe. And with that intention, the Stockholm Conference was held in 1972. 1972. It was held in Stockholm and called Stockholm Conference. And then the Stockholm Conference on June 5th, it was, the UNEP was formed, United Nations Environment Program. And to commemorate that, we celebrate on every June 5th after 1972. From 1972 onwards, we are doing this, and the first celebration was in 1973. So at that time, that means, by the Stockholm Conference took certain very important decisions, after which only this, all the official systems were formed in the national governments in almost all the countries, because all the countries which are part of UN have to follow the rules and regulations put forth by the conference. And accordingly, in all the countries, the environment and forest ministry came into existence. Before that also there was forest ministry, but the function of the forest ministry was regarding the utilization of the timber and other resources from wood, nothing else. And the concept of environmental the environmental protection and its significance came into force only after this Stockholm Conference, and therefore all the forest ministries of the countries transformed into Environment Ministry of Environment and Forest. And subsequently, in all the states also there are mechanisms, and in Kerala also we got SCST and such mechanisms. And not only that, in addition to this, international organizations were formed as part of this. For example, GEMS. GEMS is under the UN, of course, Global Environment Facility or Global Environment Fund. And that is, such a fund is necessary to conserve the nature and also the natural resources all around the globe. Sufficient quantities of money will be distributed to the nations as and when the need arises, and also as per certain rules and regulations. Then there is GRID, Global Resource Information Database. GRID, Global Resource Information Database. And that is for the assessment of the resources on this globe, so as to plan a strategical move for the utilization of the resources found in the earth. And then there is Man and Biosphere Program, MAB, Man and Biosphere Program. In Man and Biosphere Program, what they are proposing is that they set regulations for the intervention of human beings to the nature, to the natural resources. And what I'm telling is that all such international laws and mechanisms and organizations are there. The only thing is that they are not followed uniformly throughout the world. That's the thing. That is, the affluent nations and also the powerful nations blatantly violate all this. That's what we are seeing. And then at that time itself, it was decided to take a stock of the conditions prevailing in the different countries every 10 years. And I'm mentioning only about that. There were so many other international conferences for the conservation of different specific species, different regions, different specific ecosystems, etc., etc. So many were there, but we are not going into the details of all those things. But only this is, only the, this UN General Assembly is mainly concerned with this, and they decided to convene this every 10 years. And the next was the Nairobi Conference, that was in 1982. And in Nairobi conference, during those times, the most important issue was the destruction of forest in almost all the countries of the globe. And therefore, in that conference, all the chief forest conservators of the countries were also invited. And in that conference, only the social forestry projects and all came into being. And we know that we also got, so many, social projects, and the social forestry wing was established at that time after 1982. And so funds were allocated from Jeff for the for afforestation programs. But as we know the case in our place, especially in Kerala, we know that all those social forestry programs were not that successful, because majority of the funds were utilized for the construction purposes. So many forest uh, what is called, buildings and all such things. Aripa, there is one like that. Inside the forest, they made large constructions, but especially the money was meant for afforestation, especially natural forests, because of the development, the forests were cut off, and those the corridors had to be made connecting the different forests in the state. That was the aim, but that didn't happen. Avenue forestry was there, and like that, the hospital forestry, for these things, the funds were allocated from JEF. Then the largest such summit was in 1992, as all of you know. That was in Rio de Janeiro. And because Rio de Janeiro was selected at that time, because vast stretches of forests in Brazil were destroyed for raising cattle to meet the meat needs of the affluent countries, especially USA, etc. So to highlight that point also, also it was to highlight that point, the summit was conducted in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And during that condition, during that conference, the more than 100 heads of countries participated in that. It was very tumultuous. We know what all things happened there, and we are not going into the details of all those things, but we have to consider two outcome, two points, namely CBD and FCC. CBD is a Convention on Biological Diversity, that is CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity. And the next is Convention on Biological Diversity, and also there is FCCC, Framework Convention on Climate Change. Because by the time, during those times, globalization had started, and the global warming tendencies have already taken shape, and therefore climate change was a burning issue from that time itself. And to meet all those challenges, FCC was adopted by the UN, Framework Convention on Climate Change. And all these were meant for the for the conservation of natural resources, as well as for the protection and sustainable utilization of the natural resources and the environment as a whole. And even after that, there was one more. Then the next slide number 8. That is 2002. It was 2002. It is Johannesburg conference. Johannesburg. And at that time, the UN Assembly Secretary General Kofi Annan, and Kofi Annan in 2002 at Johannesburg declared that the things which we planned in 2000, which we planned in 1992, pardon? Pardon? Can I continue?
Yes, sir, you can continue.
This Johannesburg conference, what Kofi Annan told was this. We took a lot of decisions in 1992, but we didn't achieve majority of them because the fund was insufficient, and a major chunk of the fund should come from USA and Britain, and that money didn't come. That's what he said. And he also said another thing, that is, because of globalization, all the world, the countries around the world were more concentrated on trade-related issues and environmental issues. So because of these reasons, what we planned, all those things which we planned couldn't take place. And how then we think that all this money for the conservation of natural resources come from America and Britain? That's not the case. That is, even before that, we had internationally, we had accepted the fact that we had accepted a principle. That is, the principle is nothing but the polluter pays principle. The polluter, the one who pollutes the global environment. And how do you measure that pollution level? And there are so many aspects, but we can only depend on the amount of carbon dioxide emitted by a particular country to pollute the environment. So it was calculated on that basis. And during 1992, it was established that one American citizen released 20 tons of carbon dioxide per year. And at that time, the Indian emission was just 0.2 tons. That was at that time. Now, that's not addition. We have improved a lot. And therefore, unlike that, Britain, Canada, Japan, these countries were releasing more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. And therefore, they have to give a large amount of, they have to give substantial amounts to the GEF. There's a calculation how much each country must contribute for that. And accordingly, USA had to contribute a very large amount as compensation for this pollution. But they didn't give. So there was no fund to be distributed for the conservation of natural resources. So that is what we have to understand what is happening in this world, how the world is getting deteriorated, why the environment is getting degraded to such an alarming extent, why the resources are getting misused by an affluent minority. All these international laws and regulations and the principles are being flouted by the so-called powerful nations. That is the reason. And now, kindly show the slide. Limits to growth. There is a graph. Others are repetition. The graph. That one, limits to growth. So I had already explained what the experts have told in 1965, and the same thing was repeated in 2005 by Donella Meadows and Dennis Beddoes of MIT, US, Massachusetts Institute of Technologies. This is a graphical representation they made by computer modeling in 2005. So, of course, it is 15 years ago, 2005. So, this graph, so you see the parameters they took. birth, death, food per capita, pollution, then resources, then service per capita, all such things. And they, up to 2005, they took the actual data. And from 2005 to 2100, they interpolated the data, computer modeling. And for 200 years, prediction is made in this graph. And if you closely examine the graph, you can see that almost all these go upwards during the from 1900 onwards. Only two are coming down: death and birth. And also resources, not much change till 1960 or 70. After that, it is coming down. Now also it is going down. 2000 level, you see resource. That is the most important thing. The first in the graph, that is going down drastically. So this resource availability, all the resources, water getting polluted, air getting polluted, and also the resources are being exploited by a minority. Majority of the nations and poor people are not getting resources. So that is why it is going down. And all the other health-wise, they are improving from 1900 onwards. And the peak region, you see the peak is in between 2000 and 250. We must understand that it is almost this time, 2025-30 is the time where the other parameters reached the peak. After 2030, everything will start going down. So we had already seen the going down of food per capita, services per capita. All these have already started going down. And by 2050, this will be felt very severely. And by 2100, there will be a collapse. And see, two parameters are going up. You might have noted it. That is birth and death. Of course, when these conditions become worse, that increase is quite natural. But why the birth is also going up? That also is the natural selection process. That is nature. Because when the struggle for existence becomes severe, individuals have to produce more children. So the fertility rate will increase. Only if we produce more children, at least one or two will get a chance to survive. So accordingly, the fertility rate will increase. That we are seeing today also in the highly developed countries like Sweden, Norway, Germany, etc. The fertility rate is very low, and the government is giving all the facilities for the couple to produce more children, but they are not. I mean, it is not coming up to the mark there. But take the case of Bangladesh, India, etc. There, the population is we are trying to decrease our population because the struggle is greater here. So that is a natural, the same phenomenon which we are seeing in COVID-19 period. We see the operation of a natural selection to stabilize the number of species or stabilize the number of human beings. And like that, to bring the number of Homo sapiens to a stabilized level, the birth rate has to go up. So that will go up. So the birth rate and death rate will go up. So this data in 2005. That is in 1965, when the experts of the Club of Rome told that that much information was not there. But when we came to 2005, so many modern technologies were there to assess the data, but we are getting the same thing. The same thing they also told in 1965. That is, there will be a natural disaster by around 2100. So we are through all these international efforts, we are trying to avoid this catastrophe, which is expected to happen around 2100. That is the next generation, because as far as I am concerned, I belong to the generation which is going to get abolished or to finish. And the next generation, of course, 80 years, the next generation. So they are going to suffer. So that is the that is the reality. So all these international efforts, these global efforts are to avert this catastrophe or the projected collapse of the natural systems by around 2100. Now the next slide, 11, the background realities. Next slide, please. So the realities we face now, the depletion of natural resources, problems associated with the exploitation of natural resources, and of course, the accumulation of wastewater and utilization of these resources. Of course, when we utilize these resources, there are processes, and all these processes are leading to the pollution of this. Because of this accumulation of carbon dioxide, methane, oxides of nitrogen, etc., in the air, and that is leading to global warming and finally to climate change. So that is the immediate danger looming large over human society. That is a danger. That is a danger which always reminds us the necessity to conserve natural resources and the judicious utilization. And then we go to the IGPCC observations. Slide number 12, next slide. IGPCC is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That is also under UN, and Intergovernmental Panel of climate change is working from, started producing annual reports or publishing annual reports from 2005 onwards. And they collect data from all around the globe and assess it and produce reports and circulate it in countries through the UN. And their observations, these are the first, these are the observations on the first report, and the reports published after that also shows more or less the same thing, more intensely. That's all. And first thing is that what they told is that climate change is a scientific truth. Even today, we know that last year also Donald Trump told it is not a fact. He's telling it's a hoax. So we know why he's telling that, and we explain that, no. But that's it. How this affluent communities, affluent nations are acting against the interest of the people at large, and for their in order to continue their resources and also to the non-judicious utilization of the resources of the globe, they are telling that it is a hoax. And during the next 100 years, it will be intense compared to the last 100 years. That is the climate change. And the final result is that the natural systems will collapse. And we are expecting this collapse around 2100, of course. And it is a gradual change, and we have seen all the symptoms for this change, and we are all the nations, the UN and the scientific community are trying their level best to avert this. And that is why all these international conferences and all these studies, reports, everything are coming. And the next slides, 13, IGPCC observations on agriculture. They are mentioning almost all things which are going to happen in the various fields of various spheres of human life, and of course agriculture is one of the most important of those. And there what is happening and what is going to get intensified are these: depletion of water content of soil. We are experiencing that. Even now in Kerala we are experiencing it in a similar way. Climate change will adversely affect agriculture. That also we are experiencing now. Dry areas will become more dry, more rains in cold regions, droughts and floods. They are simultaneous, two sides of the same coin. More north and more south will become more hot. Tropical agricultural production will decrease 10 to 30%. And there, what we are now doing is that this is predicted, this is happening, but we are overcoming this because of the scientific developments, that is aquaponics. Then so many other modern technologies are developing, and by employing or by utilizing those technologies, we are able to some extent, we are able to cope with the agricultural, the sufficient agricultural production, but we cannot say how long we can go with this. Then crops and food habits to be changed. That's the food habits to be changed, because in the changing climatic conditions, certain crops cannot be used as staple food in the near future, because their production will go down. Alternatively, we have to find other crops as staple food. For example, we are using rice and wheat, and in certain regions that may not be possible in the future in light of climate change. Then increase in pests and diseases, reduction in productivity, all these are problems associated in that. IPCC observations on water resources. Next slide. And water resources, also the change in rain pattern, evaporation, etc. That's that has become very common now. And agriculture is in danger. Plants and animals increases. Even those because in search of water, now we know that during droughts the forest animals are coming to the human habitation in search of food and also for water. Then hydroelectric power production. These are the changes which are going to happen as per IGPCC on water resource. Then IGPCC observations on environmental systems. The next slide. So there, the first is very important. Forest areas move towards the poles. That it may sound, how can the forest move towards the poles? That only means that the tropical forests are seen around the equator, and the equatorial, in the equator region, around on both sides of the equator, around 100 kilometers. These are the areas congenial for the growth of luxuriant tropical rainforests. And as the climate changes, there will come a situation when the forest cannot grow there, because the area will become so hot that rainforest cannot grow there. But they will be able, the forest can grow 100 kilometers south and also 100 kilometers north. But we know that there the forest won't grow, because all those regions are now habited, the human habitation. That means there is a very great danger of destruction of forest. I think it's almost time now. I must hurry up. Okay. So that is the same down living systems, extinction of species, depletion of biodiversity, all those things are going to happen. And then so many other things are also there, that is fish and such things. Excuse me, how many minutes more can I spend? Hello?
So you can continue to up to 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 5 minutes.
So, so IPCC is also showing so many other things, but I can, because of time, I'm going to skip all those things. Because all those things we are not. That when we talk about the resources and their conservation, we have to give, I mean, value to slide number 18, ecosystem capital. So the ecosystem capital, when we talk about ecosystem capital, we are actually not giving enough value for the resources which we are utilizing. Suppose you take the case of a man, when, suppose a person lives up to 65 years, by the time he might have used oxygen worth rupees 5 crores. So that is there. And so is the other details given in the slide will show you the significance of our ecosystem capital. In addition to this, there are ecosystem services. All the different ecosystems together provide a series of services to regulation of climate, then distribution of rains, then water recharging, the subsurface water level maintenance, all these are being done by the ecosystems. And nutrient cycling, so many. If we go into the series of services are there, and if we value all this will come together around ecosystem service values, and they were also calculated. And the value of 1 hectare, that is 3 point something acres of forest land, will give us the ecosystem services worth 1 lakh rupees, while that of wetland is 7 lakh rupees. So if we calculate all this, we see that a the ecosystem service is the ecosystem capital is the most important capital of a nation, and not the capital which we had accumulated in other ways. So ignoring the value of this great ecosystem capital, we consider it as something which is there for our unlimited use. And so the next slide, so just we can just go through the other slides, fast overview of the slides. Massive consumptions leading to massive loss of biodiversity. Then the poorest population is most affected by these changes, as they directly rely on material resources for livelihood. That is, when the rich nations are utilizing resources on a large scale, the people who are suffering from that is the population which are the poorest in the countries, who are directly living on the material resources for livelihood, not for products. They directly rely on material resources. They are being, denied of their rights. So sustainable consumption, that is what we have to follow for the conservation of natural resources. Slide number 24. Slide number 24. 23 is sustainable consumption. And after that comes the slide 24, where there is a a transition towards a more sustainable lifestyle is crucial to enable future generations to have access to transition to sustainable lifestyle. And sustainable consumption is all about doing more with less through reducing resource use, degradation, and pollution while increasing the quality of life for all. That means it is the concept which we got a great history for that. That is what our Gandhiji told us. And local economy has to be and we have to do more with less resources. That is the concept of sustainable development. And in the government level, there are so many things which we can do, and we can just go through the next slides. For explanation, there is not much time. How to control slide number 27, like that. And there we are how to control the population. The production should be aimed at quality living, not extravagant living. The production should be aimed at quality living and not at extravagant living. Extravagant living means like Americans, British people, and also 10% of Indian population are also like that extravagant way of life. That has to be reduced. Hence, local economies should be encouraged. Then reduce GHG emission, reduce fuel consumption, reduce production consumption, which necessitates higher rate of emission of GHGs. Then reduce individual consumption to lower level. That is our carbon footprint. And finally, I'm going to come to that particular point, the carbon footprint. That is, every individual has got a carbon footprint. That is, in order to live, we have to emit a particular amount of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and that is our carbon footprint. And our aim is to reduce this carbon footprint. And in order to reduce this carbon footprint at individual level, what we have to do is this: walk to the workplace means vehicles, you have to use some walk or cycle or a public transport system or small vehicle, not extravagant. So that's all. Then we got regarding dress, we have to go for environment friendly dress types, meaning ornaments, cosmetics, all those things. Extravagant I've got some points on it, but no time to elaborate on. No time to elaborate all those things. Then also how to control climate change, fix carbon dioxide from atmosphere. That is the slide number 28. Anyway, a large number of carbon dioxide has already been emitted to the environment, and that has to be fixed. And this fixation can be done only by plants. And we have to capture the excess amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere into the trees via food. So you have to fix it, the trees, and have to transform it to food. The next generation building material is wood, should be wood. And that is another way of the best conservation of natural resources. So I thought of talking about some actions on individual level, but as the time is already over, I'm not going into that. With this, I think I must conclude. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Sir, this is the question answer section. So if anyone have any doubt regarding this topic, now you can ask your questions.
Oh, of course. No questions are coming forth. Only thanks are coming. Actually, I will be thrilled if questions are coming. Okay, no questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Feedback form is now available in your chat box. So it is available only for 50 minutes. All of you kindly fill the feedback form. Now I welcome Shinu for the vote of thanks.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
Very
sir.
glad to hear.
Okay. So my question is, how should a tourism with environmental protection be developed?
Tourism.
How should tourism with environmental protection be developed? This was a question that was asked by my friend.
That is, you are talking about the so-called ecotourism.
Yes, sir.
Ecotourism is one of the ways by which the tourism can be continued in a sustainable way. But it should be ecotourism. What we see in so many ecotourism spots in Kerala, I say that they are not ecotourism projects. Only very few are there who follow the green protocol. So not only in tourism, in every field, in every developmental activity, we can follow developmental. We can follow the developmental strategies based on sustainable development with less resource utilization and efficient resource utilization without destruction to the environment. It is possible. It is possible. Case studies all over the world, especially in developed countries. They are doing it in a very efficient way, and that is what we have to follow. But we are following only their destructive methods. That's the thing.
Okay, thank you, sir. Manasanavate, a warm good evening to one and all. It's honorable speaker, program coordinators, and my dear participants. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks. First of all, on behalf of the NSS units 250 and 540 of UKF College of Engineering and Technology, Paripalli, Kollam, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our speaker, Dr. F. George D. Cruz, who spared time from his busy schedule for gracing this event. We had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and surely it will be going to encourage us. Next, I would like to thank our program coordinators, Professor Seven. Next, I would like to thank all our volunteers who have put all the effort for making this event a grand success. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all our participants for your active participation. Once again, on behalf of the NSS units of UKF CP, I would like to thank all who are participate actively and discipline and all. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. I also thank the organizers for inviting me. I forgot to tell that in the beginning. Anyway, I'm extremely thankful to the authorities and also Professor Regin, especially, who called me for this. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Participants, the feedback form will only be available for 15 minutes. So complete it fast. After your completion, you can leave the meeting.